welcome to Mayhem with the Menopause Collective, broadcast direct to you on your platform, whatever it might be. We're just so, having, living the, what is it, Claire? Living the dream. That's
living the
it.
dream, yeah.
Living the dream.
Living.
We're living, which is the main thing. But you know what? As ladies of a certain age, we're living with a bit less of those reproductive hormones that we know can sort of make life a little bit challenging on occasion. And today we're talking all about libido. And so we might drift off subject just very slightly, but for the most part, there's no doubt that women around the menopause, the hormone shifting can definitely interfere with our levels of desire. I really only desired a good night's sleep, actually. That was all I was desiring. And maybe we've been in long-term relationships by now, and hate to say maybe the novelty value is declining at this point. So not that we should let that be a barrier, but, all of these things come together. The stresses as well of midlife, children, teenagers who are creating havoc around the house, or older relatives, older family members that you end up in a caring role. And so, there's lots of things pulling us in all which way, every which way. And this can definitely impact and impair our ability to achieve that heightened state of awareness. Tamar wondered what I was
what you were going to say.
Well, you know what? Before I say any more, thank you very much for Tamar Chalice and Claire Ottewell for joining me here today to kind of try and unpick this a little bit. And see what sort of suggestions we might have that can help us as we transition through this time. Because, for the most part, fingers crossed, it is a transition, a stage of transition. And that by the very nature, there may indeed be an end to that, where we, we've already talked before, haven't we, in the past, Claire, about embracing our, crone. There you go. Claire's got it. The crone phase of our lives. And that really is the wise woman stage of life. And so we're entering the wise woman. And, for a lot of us, it takes about 5 to 8 years for us to get there through the menopause transition. So it can be a bit of a rocky road. So libido. I mean, I definitely can, like I said, a good night's sleep was really top of my list. What about Claire? How about you? Because of, remember, Claire had surgical menopause, and that's the smack bang overnight.
Loss of desire. Yeah. I would say that libido during my 2 to 3 years of menopause definitely disappeared. I didn't want to have sex. I didn't really want to be touched, and I did want to go to sleep. And I think that was a combination of things. I think irritability levels were quite high. So, if I was made to be annoyed, then that certainly didn't put me in the mood. So it kind of the psychology of it was very challenging. Find that kind of love within my heart to want to connect with my partner in that way. And then there's the whole physicality of it, the fact that things got a lot drier. I don't have a cervix anymore. I don't have a womb. I don't have a cervix. I have ovaries. I went for the full filleting. And I think that meant that, lubricants were necessary from then on in. It wasn't a case of, I could rely on my body to do that. The skin became very thin and sensitive. So, the whole thing was, and I did put on weight. So it was like a perfect storm. And I think when you're sweating and you're all out of control and at 6s and 7s with yourself, you don't feel very attractive anyway. You feel like I felt like I'd aged overnight. So it was very difficult. But It was a stage, and I've come through that. And there are lots of things you can do. I'd say I found, as I said, I was talking about lubricant, finding a good lubricant and not necessarily a petroleum-based lubricant, because they don't work for me. They're too toxic, and it's not. You want to basically use a lubricant that's going to be moisturizing your skin and improving its elasticity, not just putting a waterproof barrier over it. And I would recommend Body Wise Liquid Silk. I found that to be particularly good because it's got more conditioners in it, and it's just, it's much more natural. I also have made elixirs for people to use internally and help that area to become less uncomfortable and less dry, or if indeed you develop sores from friction. I mean, it's all possible, isn't it? And I'm hypermobile as well, so my skin's very thin and sensitive, so that might just be why I went down that route. But I recommend those. In terms of getting weight loss, obviously there's lots of things you can do for that, but in terms of getting in the mood and feeling less frustrated and irritated, the essential oils that I would recommend are Lang Lang. I think that's incredibly good for blood pressure and, bringing some kind of those vibes back, because it's about bringing blood to that area. And step in here, because the more blood you have in that area, the more focus you will have in that area, the more desire you will have in that area. So let's hear from you about some of these exercises that you can do to kind of really bring that oxygenization back.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kegels, they call them in America, or pelvic floor muscle training, as we would refer to it, can be very beneficial actually in terms of improving the muscle tone, the skin, and bringing the blood flow to the area. Again, helping with the resilience of the tissues themselves. And definitely improving the experience if we've got toned muscles in that area. And the muscles, just like any others, they respond to training. And there are devices that you can use internally because the biggest thing that we understand is that women who have been described pelvic floor muscle training exercises and Kegels, for the most part, about 50% of them will do it wrong. And you wouldn't think it would be possible, but it's very, the deeper we go inside of us, the harder it is for us to connect with that bit of us. And so even though it's highly innovated, we still have this difficulty to sort of locate the area that we want to work. And in actual fact, we can think about the pelvic, the perineum is what we call the outer skin, if you like, of the pelvic floor region in between your legs. And then, of course, you've got the openings that exit into the perineum, and the 3 openings in the case of a woman, for the most part. And, well, we may... Well, a biological female, I suppose, is what I mean. So you can think about closing the openings. You can imagine that you're trying to stop yourself mid-flow of urine. You could imagine a tampon tug of war. So somebody's tugging on the string of a tampon, and you could, my eyebrows always go up when I do that. So, whatever muscles you would need to squeeze in order to prevent somebody pulling out a tampon. And similarly, passing wind, you're in a lift with the Queen, it would not be a good time to pass wind. And so what would you do if you didn't want to pass wind? Apart from putting your eyebrows up, you would squeeze around the back passage. And then over and above that, you want to generate a sense of lifting the organs up inside of you. So it's a kind of a squeeze and lift is what you're looking for. And actually it is possible to generate this muscle activation around the individual openings and to then do them all together. and you could do one and then the other and move from front to back or back to front. Here I'm going up and down, but you know what I mean. And so to do that for something like 10-second holds, and try and do that somewhere in the region of 3 times a day, and then add to that some 10 more rapid contractions. So a 1 second hold, a lift, a lower, a lift, a lower, you know, like a pendulum or a clock ticking. So a combination of longer sustained holds and short holds, and to do that throughout the course of each day. You know, and that can have that effect of enhancing the blood flow, and therefore improving the resilience of the tissues, the lubrication, and the enjoyment thereafter. So yeah, it's really, you know, I can't keep going on about this enough that these exercises for men and women, and you know, the same principles apply, except maybe you've only got the 2 openings that you're dealing with, and so to do this as a part of our everyday life, have a little reminder on your phone maybe. And I've talked about the Squeezy app, the Squeezy NHS app before, and that can give you reminders if you needed them. Or even just an association with brushing your teeth or switching the kettle on for a cup of tea, you know, whatever it is. And to know that when you're doing it right, you're not squeezing your bottom muscles, the buttocks, that is, and or the inner thighs or any other bit of you. And nobody knows you're doing it, apart from if your eyebrows are going up and down. And so you could do it at your desk, in your car, stood at the bus stop, in the supermarket queue, you know, whatever, wherever. And for the most part, these exercises are innocuous and they're not going to do you any harm if you do them right. But for women who have overactivity in the pelvic floor, and that's often painful intercourse is an indication that you might have overactivity in the pelvic floor, then under those circumstances, just generic advice is not necessarily going to work for you, and you need to seek out some specialist advice from a women's health physiotherapist, a really great place to start. So yeah, a bit of biology and some exercises for you to do. But what about messing with your mind, Tamar? Because you know, these experiences, these life transitions can really mess with us, and in different ways for different people. So, you know, what's pearls of wisdom have you got for us today?
Apart from the fact I'm doing those exercises right now without moving my eyebrows, it's kind of 2 separate things going on, isn't there? Because there's the physicality of it, you know, vaginal atrophy at the very far end of that experience, that, like Claire said, putting on weight, feeling anxious, hot flushes, can't sleep. You know, you're physically not feeling great. You're not really going to be up for it, are you? And kind of the spontaneity's gone if you've got to make sure you've got the lube with you. You know, there's things like those aspects of it. And then there's kind of the psychological aspects where, like Claire said, you know, maybe you are irritated, you've had a pig of a day, you know, you've forgotten how to do your job, you're not going to be feeling sexy, you know. So there's sort of an element of working on yourself first. The libido is kind of the end of the process. You've got to focus on getting yourself feeling right. You know, getting your juices flowing in the right places just for day to day walking around, sitting down, you know, let alone the sex. To me, that's kind of a thing that comes later on. It's about getting yourself right and getting yourself into a headspace where you feel okay, not like you're just existing, but then to go to the place of feeling desirable or feeling desire. You know, you can't really separate these things.
Yeah, that's a very interesting. I mean, it starts from within, and it starts with you yourself. And so we encourage people to nurture themselves and to forgive themselves if they lose the rag with the nearest and dearest. And you know, and this can be a really challenging time of life. And I know from my experience, 25% of women will suffer severe symptoms. It doesn't just mean one symptom. You know, you've got a whole plethora of undesirable things happening to you that undermine your confidence, really hit at the core of who you feel like you were or are. And so this is can be a difficult time, but we've mentioned that there is and can indeed be an end to all of that. And so I suppose it's nurturing the relationships as we transition with ourselves and with our nearest and dearest. And I suppose communication is the thing that sometimes I put my hand up. Here it is. I'm not very good at. It's really ridiculous that I'm so good. Well, I say I'm good, but in a professional context. Thank you, Claire. In a professional context, for some reason, I can be really hot on that particular skill set. And maybe when I get home, I've just done so much of it, I'm all out. I don't know. But you know what I mean? So sometimes I've kind of run out of that skill by the time I get home. But communication, I think, must be key. Yes?
And that's not just about being in menopause, that's relationships in general, isn't it? If you've had a really bad day and then your partner comes home and, I don't know, dumps some stuff on the floor, you can fall out over all sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to menopause. That's about, having a good quality relationship and good communication. Menopause is just another layer of joy to add to that.
Yeah. Claire?
I was just going to say that you don't always know that this is happening to you when you're perimenopausal. So you'll have some of these things and your partner won't necessarily know why you're changing. And that's why communication is important, because they need to understand and get on board with what's going on with your body and your mind, so they can support you in it, as opposed to just contribute towards the problem and all the anxiety you're feeling or the irritation, because they're trying to make demands of you that you don't want to give anymore or make. And it's like, right, we've got to have this discussion. And then they themselves can get caught up in thinking, well, don't you fancy me anymore? And it's like, I don't fancy anybody. It's like, I don't fancy me, you, or anybody else, because at the moment I'm just getting through this transition. And it's, as you say, Philippa, the communication, and you, Tamar, making sure that you take the time out to establish how you truly feel, and then finding a way to say that to your nearest and dearest, with a lot of I statements. So it's not you are irritating, making me not want to have sex with you. More like, I don't want to have sex with anybody because this is how I feel right now. To reassure any doubts and insecurities is incredibly important. And then finding other things to do that might bring about intimacy in a different way. So to keep it up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to put it up.
Yes.
I mean, when we talk about libido, are we just talking about sex as the end game? Is there other stuff, that doesn't have to involve the sensitive areas, that could still be part of desire and connecting?
Like having a massage, or them running you a bath, or changing the sheets, so the bed's really nice when you get into it. It's things like that can, or cooking it, there's so many things you can do that will inspire intimacy without the need to, as you say, go to that point.
I think that's really important, Tamar. Now, to say that I am definitely not any kind of a sex therapist, and I don't know that any of us are in this room, and that is something that people can consider and explore. But you're quite right that the intimacy, the connection isn't always just about the act itself, is it? It's all those other things that we could do for each other, and so what other things could we do? Just give me a few ideas here.
Well, I've just given you a few: baths,
you have
meals, massages, foot rubs, things like that.
Tamar? Holding hands.
From my point of view, it's the connection. It's how do you connect? It doesn't, personally for me, clean bed sheets would not make me want to have sex because they're clean bed sheets.
I don't mean having sex. I mean just putting a friend.
Okay, right.
Doing something nice for somebody.
Into sex.
So what you exchange? Clean bed sheets equals sex.
Oh, is that in your household?
No, because they're clean bed sheets, clearly. but for me, I think that, looking at it from a relationship angle, it's about the connection. And, I may not be able to meet this desire in you at the moment, but actually could we do, something else? And from what I hear and learn, and not being there yet myself, is that after menopause, the libido can return at an exponential level. So there's a bit of future planning that, we'll make up for it again then. This isn't necessarily the end, I guess, is what I'm saying. This is not the death of that part of your relationship. It's a hiatus. Let's connect in other ways for now. And then maybe in the future, we'll get back to monkey sex.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does recover, just not necessarily in the way that you. I'm waiting for that, Tamar. I'll hold you to that.
I don't know. This is just all anecdotal.
I think
it is.
There we go. It's different for different people. So it will recover, and some people maybe it won't, and you just won't. Everybody's different.
And part of a relationship is that it grows and it changes over the years, especially people that have been together from very, very young. The relationship at the beginning is definitely not the relationship by the time, your menopause age. So there's a progression of relationships that is natural. And this is just part of that natural process. And as long as you can both kind of work through it and find other ways of being together and connecting, there is light at the end of the tunnel. This doesn't have to be like a death knell for that relationship.
Yeah, that's right. The different love languages that we can use with each other. I think for me, definitely, it's taking time to acknowledge that this is happening, as well, because you can sort of be trying to muscle through it like it's not really happening, like you don't feel the way you feel. Or you're in denial, this isn't happening to me, or whatever it is. So that acceptance of this stage of life is a big part of the transition moving forwards, and embracing the next stages, such whatever they may be, and whatever they might look like, and yeah, like, experiment, but time. I think give yourself time to. Everything just takes longer when you can't remember where anything is, for a start off. And the fatigue element. Oh my gosh, fatigue was just terrible fatigue. So, it doesn't have to be the bedroom. It doesn't have to be late at night. Save it for the Saturday afternoon when you might feel a bit more like connecting in a intimate way. I can hardly say it. Never mind do it. Oh dear.
There is space here for being creative and having fun with it, having a giggle, going, well, that was a really bad idea, let's not do that again. But it becomes a funny story between the two of you then. Be a bit creative. And actually, we're a little bit older and a bit more confident. There was something I thought I might like when I was in my 20s, but daren't say it. So let's have a bit of a laugh and try it now. Creative, enjoy it, have a bit of fun with it. It's okay if it goes wrong.
Get a guidebook. That was always my work through the joy of love. Do you remember looking for that on your parents' bookcase? Oh no, not the joy of love, the joy of sex. It was called. Back in the day, and you kind of used to look on the bookcase, see if you could find it and have a look in it. I don't know.
Did you find it, Philippa?
I think I might have done. Yes. Work through the Kama Sutra. I mean, but you would have to do yoga for that, really, to be flexible enough to work your way through that. Definitely, you would have to do a bit of my yoga. Keep you supple. And medication. Sometimes we're on medications that affect us. We've got we start to get joint aches and pains, and my experience of working with a lot of people with back conditions is that's. Forget menopause. That's really prohibitive if you're in acute pain, physiological pain. So there's lots of reasons why our libido might be influenced and affected. And I think the key takeaway from this is, keep communicating as much as we can with one another. And connecting in new and more imaginative ways than ever before. And so be kind to yourself, and things, nothing, what is it? There's nothing so certain as change. things change, and it's not destined to be this way forevermore. So we can have a bit of hope on the horizon for and that new lease of life that Tamar's talking about. We're all holding our breath for that.
We can but hope.
Indeed, we're looking forward to that. Well, talk about looking forward. It's the weekend coming up, so do look forward to having a lovely weekend. I'm headed away, aren't I? I'm going on holiday, so I won't see you live for a little while. And what was I going to say? Don't forget that we are here in our Moving Through Menopause Facebook group, and we do interact with you and answer your questions if you put them to us. We love to support people, women in particular. We love to support people, but this is all about the menopause, so women in particular. And what else do we do, Claire? Anything else I should tell them?
Thanks for landing me in it there. I was just listening to you, happily giving us the information. No, we are there to support you, and we've got between us a whole wide range of skills that we can support you through your journey, so that it becomes as positive an experience as it possibly can be, and as realistic a journey as it can be. Because as Philippa's mentioned and Tamar's mentioned, it's all about realistic expectations to make sure you don't find yourself falling into a negative loop.
Yeah, a pit of despair. We wouldn't want that, would we? No. It's easy to tipple into there, if you're not with the unexplained anxiety that we get with menopause as well, and you think everybody's or it's all going so wrong. But yeah, so it's this complex picture of issues that kind of feed into one another for various reasons. And it's hardly any wonder that we just want a good night's sleep, is it, at the end of the day? So.
No, absolutely not. And I was going to say, there is something about some people may have in the past, pre-menopause, used sex as a way to kind of communicate with their partner or feel good about themselves. And when that gets removed, there is a kind of, a lot of anxiety that comes out of that, and needing to fill it up with themselves, like finding yourself. So I'd say menopause is definitely a journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance. And in amongst all that forgetfulness and everything, there is a part of you that just doesn't give up anymore. So there is a level with that, that's the gift side of it, the silver lining, or the gold, standard. Which I think, at the end of the day, does it really matter? So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like that. We'll end on a positive note. Thank you all for your time today. Thank you for listening in, and keep your eyes peeled. We'll be back, as Arnold Schwarzenegger said. And have a wonderful weekend, ladies. Thank you again.
Thanks.
Bye for now.